You're very welcome to another episode of the Scaling Your Business podcast. For this episode, delighted to be joined by fellow Mees man, now a native Leash man, Michael Dever, the founder at HappyTeams. Michael, you're very welcome to the show.
Cheers, Rian. Thanks for having me on. Delighted to be here.
Chuffed to have you on, man. Let's rewind the clock to all those years back to young Michael. You grew up in Bettystown in County Meath. What was life like growing up there? Any fond memories?
Oh, loads, absolute load. Bonfire season, topical. It's nearly Halloween. Bonfire season, going out collecting the wars that would come in bonfire season. And funny anecdote, I got hit by a telegraph pole, half a telegraph pole. We were using it for, I don't know where we got it. We were using it as a center pole for a bonfire. It was the bonfire to end all bonfires. And we managed to get it up, right? There was about 8 of us holding it. 8 of us kids. We were about 7 or 8 or something. And we were like, right, the inevitable point came where we had to let go. We were like, 3, 2, 1, we'll run. 3, 2, 1. Everyone ran that way, and I ran that way.
Oh.
I got firmly planted into the ground and got a couple of days in Lourdes out of it. But yeah, still a good memory. Great crack.
I listened to a guy, a former Google ex-employee, Mo Gareth. He's on the Stephen Bartlett podcast, The Diary of a CEO. The reason why I'm referencing this is because he did a podcast all about happiness. If anyone is to ever listen to any recommendation of any book, podcast, video, anything in the whole world that I recommend, it would be to listen to that podcast Stephen Bartlett did with Mo Gareth. It is the most powerful podcast on happiness and why happiness is a choice. I don't ever share podcasts with my dad or my girlfriend. I just keep work life and personal life separate. I've shared this with them and they both listen to it, and they've both listened to it numerous times and says they've never found something as powerful. It's only out in about a week, definitely worth listening to. But the reason I say this is because, man. The reason why I say this is because at one point in the podcast, he talks about happiness and how it's a choice and etc. And he says at one point in the podcast, he's done the study with thousands of people. The thing is, if I could erase the worst memory in your mind, but as a result of erasing that memory, everything that stemmed from it, any connection you made, any extra event that happened as a result of it, would also be erased. Would you erase the worst memory in your mind? And 99 out of 100 people always say no. And these are victims of bad abuse and seeing potential their parents die in front of them. And they all say no because of the things that have happened as a result. So if you look at the worst event that's happened in your life, there's usually some, and I don't sound arrogant, but there's usually, as a result, some people that come into your life are net positives that you can kind of attach to when you think of it that way. And I was referencing that because the example that you gave of a fond memory, but also probably quite painful at the time.
I don't remember any pain, but to be honest, I don't remember anything from when that pole hit me to about 3 days after. So
wow.
I do know I got lost an awful lot of times in the hospital, and they had to go out looking for me a fair bit. So, but yeah, life is linear. That sounds like very kind of like, I don't know, abstract or just a very narrow view of life. But life is like a series of steps, I think.
Yeah.
If you take one step out, what comes after is different. So I think you're a sum of everything that happened to you. So if you get rid of a significant part of it, if something is significant enough for you to go, I want to get rid of that, will probably have a very large impact on your life afterwards. So there are definitely things that would be worth getting rid of, all right, for sure. But I think if you're happy with where you are now, everything in the past got you here.
Exactly. I can think of an event that I wasn't particularly happy with in my past, but as a result of that, when I left that, I got introduced to a new scenario, and as a result of that new scenario, I met my girlfriend. So would I go back and erase that event? Because if I erase that event, then I don't have my girlfriend. Yeah, we're going deep here on the start of this podcast. I haven't gone this deep before.
Hashtag deep, like Bo Burnham says. Yeah. I think, like I said, you're a sum of everything up to now. So, and then again, you don't know where you're going in the future, right? Hopefully it's somewhere great. So if you take out that big part, maybe you don't get to that greatness. So
Impact and influence, Michael. Impact and influence. What I mean by that, though, to tee up the question, is people can usually point to a number of people in their life that had a positive impact. So, for example, for you, positive impact on young Michael, teacher, close friend, relative. Anyone spring to mind?
Yeah, there was one teacher in the Marys in Drogheda. I was not the best of students. I was an awful messer, and did academically before college wasn't great. So I struggled with exams an awful lot. This is probably a topic you could do a whole podcast on, the Irish exam system. But yeah, I did very well in English in my junior cert, and I'd stress so much about it not being good at exams and things like that. I got a very good mark. I can't remember what the mark was, but what was said afterwards stood out. Was I saw my English teacher and I said, "Oh, thanks so much for getting that for me." I wouldn't have got, just, like, genuinely believed it was her that got it and not me. And it wasn't again, to hark back to the sum, it wasn't the sum of her input and my work that got me there. And she just said, "Michael, that's all you. You don't need to thank me." And it didn't kind of stick out to me then, but it jumped me later in life because it was just such a moment of empathy. Like, I just had no love for education and no value in the work I'd done. And she obviously just saw that and was just like, "It's all you. You own it, pretty much." And that kind of one taught me empathy for work other people do, value in what they do and expressing it, and then to also be proud of the things I've done in life as well. They're not proud of everything you did, but the things you did that are good, definitely own them, be proud of them, wear them, really.
Yeah.
And that woman was Miss Clark, Caroline Clark.
Shout out to Caroline Clark. What I've done with this before, because people have shouted out the likes of, give you one example, someone shouted out Brezzy and the positive impact he had on their life, and like their business wouldn't be where it was. I've taken those clips and I've sent it to them, and all of the people I've sent the clips to, university lecturers in UL, part of, I can't remember her name, Wendy Ocky, I think it is, to Charlie Butler from Bounce Insights. I sent it to Brezzy. Brezzy tweeted back at him. So I probably will pull that clip, and if I can find her, I'll send it to her as well, because I know that she'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I reached out for a few years later. Well, actually, very later on, like probably 10. When I finished my PhD, I reached out for her and I was like, "Look, I wouldn't have got this far without you. Like, it didn't hit me until later, like a long time after you said it, but it was probably one of the most valuable things I heard."
Yeah.
And then other influences, obviously the father, such a kind man. Once I recognized that as a skill to have, honestly, that's a skill that has to be built into you. But I think to get there, you have to work at it. But the relationship that gives you with people afterwards is just phenomenal. So yeah, those would probably be the two standout ones for me.
You mentioned finishing your PhD. I know you did computer science and you went in to do a PhD.
Yeah.
Where did the love and interest in computers stem from?
We had a family friend when I was younger, and he was into programming, like just as a hobby or whatever. And I think he was over in the house once and he showed me how to make just something that took two numbers and added them together. Again, I must have been about 8 or 9 or something like that. To be honest, didn't even thought, "Oh, that's cool." Didn't do anything with it after that. Then came to see old time. Like I said, I wasn't great academically in school, and I was like, "I like computers." Just threw everything computers on the CAO, and once I got to college, that was it. Absolutely at home in programming, tech, everything to do with it. Loved it. Took to it like a fish to water, really. So yeah, got lucky there that I could have picked something else that would not have suited me. But yeah, looked out in the end. Got exactly enough points to get into the course, the computer course in DCU, only because points went down that year. So the Leaving Cert isn't everything, but it is a gateway to get into college. But there are other ways as well, like PLCs and things like that, going in as a mature student. And I'm sure I would have done that if I didn't get the points I needed.
I think the highest nowadays is 625. I could be mistaken, but there's a couple of people that my sister's name is Aideen, so I'll reference her from Aideen colleges instead of calling her her. But Aideen was saying to me that there was people out there that have achieved and put hours every day into study throughout the like 50th year and 60th year, took it dead serious, unlike myself, and achieved 625. And there's courses that you need 65 to get into, and because the demand is so high, even at achieving 65, they still can't get into the course. So imagine achieving the highest grade you could possibly achieve and then being told you can't actually do that course.
It's, I think we're probably getting off the topic of the podcast here, but
yeah, no, I'll have us wait to wean us back in a minute.
I think it is. It's an awful stressful gate to put on people so young when your life is so, say, malleable. You don't know what you want to do. Like, pick something at 16, it's going to be different at 17, it's going to be different at 18. You have all this stress to get into a course. And whether you excel at that course or not is not related on the thing that has caused you so much stress. It's how you apply yourself afterwards.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
HappyTeams. Tell me about it. What is it?
HappyTeams is, in one sentence, the tool to measure your employees' engagement in your company in a very simple and intuitive way with minimal interruption but high output in terms of data and analytics. Particularly relevant now with all of the hybrid work at home, in office, and return to work is a very stressful time for everyone. But work life in general is very, very stressful anyway. So it's not just a tool for now. It's a tool for forever, hopefully, for a lot of companies.
So I'd like to dive deep into a couple of things here because this topic fascinates me. I went onto your website, very well put together, by the way, man.
Appreciate it.
I guess the best way to tee this up is I'm a big believer in tying corporate goals to personal goals. So take the position of like a leader or a manager who's in charge of a team. I think one of the things they should do that is proven to help people hit their target is, or certainly improve, or if they're on a PIP to get them off that, is to tie their personal goals to the corporate goals. What I mean by that is, if you were to go in as a manager and say, Michael, if you hit your target, as a result of hitting your target, you'll get 50,000 euro compensation. That's what it's called. So, you should work hard to hit your target. But if you were to start a conversation with you and I was to say, hey, Michael, outside of work, when you're logged off of work, what is it that you're interested in? And you kind of build a relationship with the person. You find out that Michael loves Formula One, addicted to Formula One. And you say, okay, and you figure out that, flying out to Abu Dhabi to experience Formula One out there is his dream, and kind of like meeting one of the people, and or he could be in the cars and, getting the specific cars, his goal. If you were to say, hey, Michael, if you work really hard, you'll be able to get the money that can buy you that car, or kind of afford you the trip to do the top world-class trip out to that destination, to see those, drivers that you're dreaming about seeing, and then work with them and potentially create a vision board where they put it on their vision board. And then that's just the basics of tying corporate to personal goals. And I'm referencing this because a happy employee is far less likely to leave a company than an unhappy employee. But a question I have is, it sounds like I'm going to call it a software that you guys have built.
Yeah.
It gives the ability to identify trends, which then the leader or manager can deal with, and as a result, increase bottom line revenue or company growth.
Yeah. So there's quite a few things there, right? So basically, it's probably easier to explain if I start from how it works, and then how we go into after that, right? So basically what we do is, so I know you mentioned the website there and how well put together it is. Again, like life, it's a sum of parts. That's everyone in the company working together to get, say, the text right, the messaging right, to tell you exactly what we want to do with you. We want to help, really, is all we want to do is help employees and leaders manage their work life better, right? So what we do is we have a team of psychologists, and they've defined a question like, organizational psychology derived questions. We send them to you. They're all designed to be like glanceable. Like we want the whole interaction to be just a couple of seconds max. You see a question, they're designed to generate an emotion. And then underneath the question, you see four emojis. You click the emoji that you identify with. We turn that into data. We give you analytics. We give you dashboards so you can see trends over time of engagement. We have calendaring. So, like say you're a tech company and you have release week, you can mark that on the calendar and you can see if it dips or peaks or whatever during release week. Usually in a tech company, it's a dip around crunch time and a peak afterwards. But and then what we do is we have these like positive behavioral changes that we can suggest to you. We call them nudges, and you'll get them same mechanism, be it Slack, Teams, or email. It's a little bit of text, perhaps a link to an article like on Harvard Business Review or any of the other sites. Could be YouTube, could be TED Talk. It's all about driving change around that behavior. We don't just target those to managers. We give them to the employees as well, because if you want your work life to be better, you have to work at it as well. It's not fair to put all of that on the manager, but leadership is responsible for a huge amount in the company as well. And what it all comes down to, like everything in life, I'm convinced, is communication. So in a workplace, you might not know how to say like, no one listens to me, or when I go home in the evening, customers are ringing me at 11 o'clock at night and I can't disconnect. You might not know how to say it. You might have an angry manager. You might have someone who doesn't outwardly appear to care. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. You don't know if I say to you, like, say, no, again, no one's listening to me. You don't know if that's going to be fed up the chain in the company, or if that manager is just going to go, that's a negative about me, I'm going to keep that to myself. When really it's a company-wide thing. If loads of people are saying no one's listening to me, that's a big problem with your company. Whereas if it's just one manager, that manager needs to improve, or perhaps the people under him need to improve how they communicate. Again, it's the sum of parts. So we drive change from both sides on that. And that's pretty much a very high level how the product works. There's a lot of science underneath it and psychology and things like that. But it's all designed to be super, super simple. It's all designed to be minimum interaction. People can opt out of questions if they want. You can change the periods you get questions at. You can give different people access. And one thing we do as well is we don't group in terms of, say, teams or projects or clients, as you might classically think of say, an organization, right? You work for a client, you have teams that work on projects and deliver output. We use the concept of like tags, essentially analogous to a hashtag, really, although we don't use the hash sign. It's just groups of people, it can be anything. Whatever way makes sense for you to group people in your organization or in your team to see that data. It's all about relevance, right? We can't say a project is the best way for you to see this data, but you as an organization can go, I want to see this project, or I want to see people who work in this client, or I want to see people in this country or in this town, or all the usual demographics.
As a topic, this is an incredibly important topic to get right in your company if you want to improve retention.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So happy employees have so many positives, right? So like you've increased quality, you've increased customer satisfaction, increased revenue, less breakages, less defects. You've got less churn, right? So like an employee leaving is, I think it's about 5 times more expensive than hiring one. So like a bad hire.
Yes, it is 5 times more, 5 times the cost of an annual salary.
Yeah.
A bad hire.
And it even has more effect than that, because someone who's unhappy in the workplace, toxicity is contagious in the workplace. If a couple of people are negative, it has a tendency to spread. Likewise, conversely, if you have a toxic environment in your workplace, that leads to toxic attitudes, and that spreads again. People leave, people aren't happy. It can be for loads and loads of reasons. So one of the interesting things is if you look at, say, an older generation, they had two primary goals in the workplace: title, salary, right? Very, very simple to keep people happy within those two metrics. But nowadays, the younger generations, like our generation and below, it's probably more, it's more like a relationship, right? There's lots of needs that have to be met. And salary is quite low and title is quite low. Like, say there's ethics of a company. Do I align with leadership? Do I know what my job is? Do I know how it contributes? Is it a positive? Is it a negative? Am I valued? Are my skills used to the best of their ability? Can I disconnect? There's a huge amount of needs now that need to be met. And if you're not meeting on those, people are going to leave. Some of them have less of an impact on people leaving, and some of them are more important. But the interesting thing we find when we talk to people and we mention this is that people don't understand that salary is quite low, even though for them it's the same.
Yeah.
You just have like this classic model of work environment. I want money, I want title. Everyone's fallen into that trap and has left a company or not been happy in a company. But when you drill down into it, if you reflect on it, it's actually not just that. Like, say you're very, very highly skilled, you feel your skills aren't being used, you might feel like you're not getting paid enough for your full skill set, even though you're not using your whole skill set. And that, again, doesn't come down to money. It comes down to, are my skills being used? And then all of these, again, excuse me, at the very root, come back to communication. If I don't know how to say to someone, like, I can do so much more, or please put me on this project, or being vocal about what you can do, what you want to do, and what you want out of a business is hard, because again, there's a classic model of I'm just an employee, and that's not the case. It's a relationship. On paper, yes, it's the case, but the reality is I'm giving up half my week to work for you. I want to work on good things. I want to enjoy what I'm doing. I want to be compensated. And when I leave work, I want to not have to deal with work. It's very, we could talk for hours about this. And I'd love to hop on again and have a deeper
absolutely
any area of it.
I have another question though before I let you go. I'm fascinated on your site. You've got a resource section and you got a blog, and your site was what introduced me to organizational citizenship behavior. An important ingredient, as I was just referencing, to retention. Can you tell the listeners what that is?
So basically, sorry, which do you want me to talk about?
Organizational citizenship behavior.
Yeah, so like that's basically, let's talk in general terms about it, right?
Yeah.
Basically, that is a sense of belonging to a company, and that is a feeling that the company belongs to you as well. So one, your needs are being met. Two, you're delivering, you're providing value, right? These are all very, very important things to us. That the company is looking out for you. So in that sense, it's aligned with your needs. That, again, coming back to it, aligns with, say, your ethics, your morals, what you want to contribute a positive to the world. Say you don't want to work for something that's evil. And all of this, like you said, drives retention.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose someone, the cost of rehiring and retraining is, like we said, it's 5x, but it can be more. It can be less, but it can be an awful lot more. And it's not just retraining. So you might have someone in an organization, say, who has all this knowledge about other parts of the organization, but they're working on one very narrow thing at the moment. If that person leaves, they take all that knowledge with them, right? They're not part of your company anymore. So you've lost more than just, say, the money you have to pay to rehire someone. You've lost a lot of organizational knowledge that can be shared across your organization. If someone is a good leader, the impact of that is far further reaching than just purely money and knowledge. Someone is a good leader, it's a direct impact on anyone who's under them or working alongside them. And their outputs will suffer as well. They may become unhappy, then they leave. And it's just, you want to keep people as happy as they can be in their workplace, and as fulfilled is probably the better word. You want to keep people as fulfilled as possible in their work. You want to give them what they need and not overburden them. Like, I can give you an example of where our tool worked exceptionally well for this. We have this customer in Asia, right? And they're this big multinational, and one of the managers in there was a woman on his team. He knew she wasn't happy and couldn't figure out why. Had conversations with her, in those conversations, couldn't figure it out. And really all he wanted was just for her to be happy. Never mind at the workplace, just be happy. So she was getting the HappyTeams question every day. And she went to him after a couple of weeks and she said, these questions that are coming in, I spent an off. So they're designed, right, to be quick. Like I said, 2 seconds, you're done. On with your day. This woman sat there and thought about them. And she went to him and she said, you know what? I'm actually not happy here at all. And what he said to us was, that was amazing, because one, if she's not happy, as a person, I want her to be happy. And then as a manager as well, if she's not happy, it's not a net positive output, right? Yeah. To bring it down to numbers, right? It's not a net positive output. And if I invest more in that person, they're still not going to be happy and they're still going to leave. And I'm down. There's 2 wins there. One, she's now happy somewhere else. He keeps in touch with her and she's delighted where she is now. And 2, he has someone now who's super happy in the workplace, right? That's amazing that we can, so we're a remote company, right? We're all over the world building HappyTeams. But say from here in Ireland, right, where we had the questions, they go out to Asia. Some woman who's not happy in her job but doesn't know it takes those questions, reads them, responds to them, so gives the data back, but then thinks about them and goes, you know what? This isn't for me. That's an amazing change to have on someone. And then for the manager as well, to go, delighted she's moved on and now I have someone else who does that job and they love what they do every day and they're happy to come in and they know they're happy. Amazing impact to have on people. And then that goes on with, like we have companies with us who have gone through mergers and things like that. And yourself, post-merger is like tumultuous. And they've been able to show the areas where that, say, negativity or unhappiness comes from post-merger. Because like we'll show you exactly what people say, like we'll show you the questions. So say again, is my opinion valued? Say that's highly negative. We put that front and center. People don't feel their opinion is valued. So now and you will get that nudge, that positive behavioral change around that to help you make people feel their opinion is valued.
I know you've got to head somewhere straight after this, so I'm conscious of time.
Worries.
So I've got one more question, but with that, from your website, I pulled this on organizational citizenship behavior. It is dealing with the actions and behaviors that are not required by workers, not critical to the job, but benefit to the team and encourage even greater organizational functioning and efficiency. For the listeners, what I want to say is that, as Michael has referred to, there's various ways. I'm looking at my screen here, Michael, by the way. There's various ways the employees can show organizational citizenship. 5 different ways. Number 1, altruism. The type of organizational citizenship behavior is when a person decides to help someone else without expecting anything in return. Number 2, courtesy. This is when a worker is considerate or polite to those they work with. Number 3, sportsmanship. This could be exemplified by a worker refraining from complaining or gossiping about a re-injected project proposal. Number 4, conscientiousness. When an employee goes above and beyond, the quality of conscientiousness is likely at work. And number 5, the final one, civic virtue. which is, this is when a worker represents the company they are associated with in a positive light. If anyone would like more information on that, not only will I put the links to Michael's LinkedIn and his website, HappyTeams, but I'll also specifically link that article on HappyTeams resource section as well. Well worth checking out.
Awesome.
The final question I do have for you, Michael, is you studied computers, you've built this fascinating software out, and you're helping people all across the world. That must put a smile on your face. But what's one tool that you cannot live without?
Tool is the wrong word.
Okay.
But people. Can't live without people. People who inspire, people who give feedback, people who criticize. Again, criticize is feedback. And people, to be honest, the thing you can't live without is having someone who you can go, I did this today. Let's just take an example. I had this conversation and I don't know if it was the right thing to do. What do you think? And they will go completely honestly because they care about you and what you're doing. And they'll go yes or no, and they'll tell you why. And then moving on from that, learning from that, that's the most important tool. Communication. Maybe I should have said communication. Communication is the most important tool as well.
I like your answer, and it's an answer that I haven't heard before. Usually people pick something like a CRM software, like an email scraper, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, something that helps them in their job, a Slack as a tool. But I know we're up in time. I do want to thank you. I thank all my guests that come on this because they take time out of their day to one, talk with me on this podcast, but two, as a net result, they get something out of it as well. And there's only been 2 podcasts this is episode 139, 140. There's only been 2 podcasts that I've never released because I just didn't think they were of value to the community. They have their own separate reasons why they were released. But as thanking everyone, it doesn't mean that I enjoy each podcast to the same level. There's some that I enjoy more than others. This podcast is in the top category of podcasts that I actually genuinely enjoy having a conversation with someone. I do want to thank all my guests, but this one, I've really enjoyed this. I'd love to have you on for a part 2 because I know we only scratched the surface on all things HappyTeams and everything you're doing, because I could talk work-life balance, deep diver into organizational citizenship behavior, employee engagement. I could ask you, culture. That's a buzzword. What does that mean to you? Because it's a buzzword thrown around. There's so much we can go into. So when you're back from out west, let's schedule a date in the diary to get a second part 2 in.
Definitely.
But thanks for today. And
awesome. Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed this as well. I love just conversations. I love not, say, having a super strict format or anything. Like, I love starting with conversations, seeing where it goes, and hopefully you end up with some good output at the end. I really, really enjoyed this.